So lately, I've had more than one situation where people ask my advice on this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make a video about it. Not something I normally talk about on this channel, but whatever. For whatever reason, a lot of my friends or people that I'm in close relationship with be having issues with should they pursue a relationship with someone. It's mostly been people who either already are in a relationship and they're looking at opening it up to other people, or else it's been, crushes, stuff like that. There's been a lot of questioning. How do you know when to pursue something with someone or not? How do you know if you're just friends? My advice is always the same, pretty much universally. It doesn't matter the situation. I always say, if you have a base level of, yeah, this is looking good, you know better whether to pursue anything going forward. And to me, base level, this is looking good, is 5 questions that you can ask yourself, and depending on the answer to it, you know if you're compatible at a at least simple level, and then you can pursue deeper levels after that. But if you can't even answer all 5 of these questions, then you're probably not ready or compatible or whatever. And none of this means that the person's bad or bad for you, or that you're bad or bad for them. It just means you might not be compatible. And that's okay. It is okay to just not be compatible. Question number 1. Are circumstances in alignment? Do you guys both hate long distance relationships, but you live far away? Is one person married? Is one person already in some sort of relationship? Is it going to be complicated because you guys work opposite hours from each other? There's lots of things that can go on with circumstances. If your place in life is just not where being in a relationship is probably the best plan for you, maybe you're in a point of transition, or you just started some sort of career or something, your circumstances might not be right just for you to be in a relationship, period. Not necessarily anything to do with this person. And if you are saying, my circumstances are probably not that great at the moment, then that leaves the door open for them to either be willing to wait, which some people are, but most people aren't, or else for you to say which one's more important to me. But if circumstances going on in your life are not really where you're ready for a relationship, or maybe a relationship with them looks like it would be difficult, that's an okay thing to accept. Question number 2. Do you guys have at least 2 interests in common and 1 interest not in common? Do you have enough interests in common that you guys could make memories together, laugh together, explore something together, really delve into enjoying life together? And do you have at least 1 hobby that's different from each other, so that you do not totally completely enmesh and lose all sense of identity and constantly compromise yourself to be with this person? Do you have at least 1 thing that's your own and that helps you express yourself? I've seen it go both ways. I've seen people who just don't really do anything together, and I've seen people who do everything together 24/7, never are apart. And neither of those is balanced. Both of those are extremes. Question number 3. Do you share common morals and values and beliefs? And can you communicate well with each other, especially about them? I have seen so many people who don't understand why the other person doesn't understand. And a lot of misunderstandings really seem to come down to either communication issues with each other, or else just flat out different values. If honesty is super important to you, completely important to you, you feel like you're being abandoned if someone deceives even a little, you shouldn't be with someone who's fine with white lies. And if someone's really, really big on loyalty, but you're constantly individualistic and going off and doing your own thing and don't really care about being around home or with them, that you're probably not right for each other. And it's not that any of those things are bad, it's that you just shared very different beliefs and morals about the dynamic in a relationship. If one of you thinks that oh, this person is always supposed to provide for me, and they don't want to be just your bank, and they feel like that's using them or treating them like an object, they shouldn't be with you. And if someone treating you like, oh, if you don't listen to every problem I have and be an emotional support blankie, and that makes you feel like an object, then that also isn't good for you. It's really important to think through, do we share values? Do we tend to vote in the same direction? Do we tend to support the same sort of organizations and maybe religious beliefs and things like that? Do we tend to care about the same minority groups? Or, it doesn't have to necessarily be exact, but to be along the same lines does matter. If there's a person who constantly is like very passionately for business growth and they love that, they think that's amazing, and then you have another person who's super about environmentalism and keeping things small and local, they're gonna have conflict that come from just having differing beliefs from each other. Question number 4. Do you guys have similar hopes and dreams for the future? If one person wants 2 kids and the other person wants at least 5, that's going to be something you need to talk about. If one person really just wants to be an entrepreneur and they're not going to want a family for years because they really want to focus on that business that they're starting, and the other person really wants to start a family right now, that's going to be something you have to talk about. If one person, when they retire, wants to go traveling and exploring the world, and the other person just wants to stay home and do a garden and never go anywhere, that's going to be something you'll need to talk about. And the more of those things that you will need to talk about that are different from each other, the more opportunities for conflict and an uncontented future. It's really important to be with someone who either you can pursue those dreams together as a team, or else they support your dreams and they're rooting for you and they're cheering for you. There's so much to be said for caring about someone right now. Yet the majority of relationships tend to be somewhat temporary because you're not going in the same place. You make friends with someone in school, but once school's over, what do you have in common? You make friends with someone and maybe you play the same video game, but as soon as one of you stops playing, what are you doing together? You're not doing anything together. It makes it really hard to maintain a relationship when you're not going in the same place. So it's really important to think about, do our futures actually align? Question number 5. Am I attracted? Are they attracted? Is there a mutual chemistry? Because sex is an important part of a relationship. You can have all the other 4 in common, and if you don't have this one in common, you might just be best friends. You might just be pals. It might not actually be a romantic relationship. If you're not into each other, then that sucks. Because finding someone who you can get compatibility with everything is really hard. And this one is often either one of the only ones you've got, or else the one you don't have. And attraction, let me be really, really clear, does not mean, is this the most hot person I've ever seen in my life? Physical look, like how tall someone is or how big their bust size is not what I'm talking about. Because those things, quite frankly, how we physically look changes a lot over time throughout our lives. Our physical way we dress, express ourselves, cut our hair, wear our clothes, all of that's going to change. So that's not that big. What's more big is actual attraction. There's research to show that the times that people find their significant other the most attractive has nothing to do with physical appearance at all. It actually is when they're doing something they're passionate about, it just turns people on. And I can admit that definitely is a thing for me too. When I see someone who's like, man, I have always admired cleverness in a woman. When I see someone who is solving things and just calculating, and that just is exciting for me. Or when I see someone who's genuinely thoughtful and sweet, and treats people with kindness and is so passionate about the people they care about and being there for them, that also excites me. Do I like certain physical characteristics more than others? Sure. But narrow it down to like two. Because in actuality, the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with is going to be someone who physically changes. And what is attractive about them is so much more than just physical appearance. People may have a surgery and they need to gain weight for the surgery or lose weight for the surgery. People may have some sort of car wreck or accident and they get scars on their body or something happens. People get pregnant and they get stretch marks and they get, like, things happen, stuff happens, physical appearance changes. So pick one or two things that are really important, that are defining features that probably aren't going to change that much. What's really the end of the world is, do we have actual chemistry? There's unfortunately going to be times that the answer to that is just no. And that doesn't mean they're ugly, it doesn't mean they're bad, it just means you're not compatible. And there's going to be times that that's no from someone else to you. And that doesn't mean you're ugly. It doesn't mean you're bad. It just means they're not feeling compatibility with you. Unrequited love is painful. Limerence is even more painful. But in actuality, the most painful thing is just lying to yourself forever. It's much better to know, that have stable, secure footing and say, yeah, I've thought about this enough. I've answered the 5 questions. They all seem to be a yes. So at that point, sure, see if you guys have something more that you can develop together. If you, both of you are saying, yeah, we mutually feel this way, awesome. That's great. But if not, maybe think about being friends, or maybe it's just a temporary fling, and this isn't the person you're probably going to spend the rest of your life with. And those are the same 5 things I tell everybody who asks me this question. Now, there's 2 things with this. Number 1, what if you're already in a relationship and you ask these 5 questions and you realize, oh, some of these answers are a no. I'm already married and we do not want the same things for the future. I'm already married and yeah, we have no common interests. I'm already been, their girlfriend or boyfriend for like 5 years, and we do not share similar morals and we miscommunicate constantly. There's complication there. If you're asking these questions and you've already been in a relationship, the first thing is to bring these 5 questions up to your significant other and see if they feel the same way. If they feel there's no's to some of these questions as well, and then you guys can have a real and honest discussion about it. You can look for, well, here's the reasons we've stayed together this long, so these are the things that are a yes, and 2, here's the things that aren't working, what are ways that we can adjust. And maybe it'll be real simple. You can be supportive of each other if it's the future, but you don't necessarily want the same thing. You can try to explore each other's hobbies and see if you can find a common interest. There's options. Sometimes it's really just a hard situation because it's a solid no. And at that point, you either realize, oh, hey, maybe we need to get separated, divorced, something, or else you realize maybe we need to open the relationship up a little bit because we're not able to give each other everything we need, but we have a lot of yeses here and we don't want to just throw everything away. And both of those options are hard. It is not easier to get divorced. It is not easier to open up the relationship. They're both difficult in different ways. And it's totally up to you which one would be better if you guys can't find middle grounds and, gives and takes. The other thing is that these 5 questions are a starting point. They are now I know we should pursue this. They are not the end-all be-all. They are not the definitive questions, and there are no others. Once you've answered these 5 questions, go ask more. Dive into each other. Get to know each other. Because these 5 questions are just a starting point on, are we compatible? It could be that there's some other thing that comes up that's totally different, that totally changes things. And you'll notice that there are a couple of questions that might have seemed like, oh, why aren't they on the list? Why these 5 questions? One of them that comes up a lot is finances. And quite frankly, your beliefs about finances, you could say, fall under belief. But in actuality, finances are overblown in my opinion anyway. As someone who has helped people with their budget since I was 12, how much money someone makes is so unimportant compared to how someone manages their money. You could have someone who's making 6 figures a year, and if they spend it all constantly, or if they hoard it all constantly just to buy liability someday, they're not any better off than if they were living paycheck to paycheck. It does not matter that they have money coming in if they cannot manage the money. Beliefs about money are way more important than how much money. Secondly, another question that comes up a lot is more emphasis on religion or on Democrat versus Republican or things like that. And quite frankly, because this is my answer to everyone universally, I have a lot of international friends, and not everyone is American. Those things are not the same country to country or culture to culture. Again, they can kind of fall under beliefs, but in reality, Americans tend to, unfortunately, think that they're the center of the universe, even in that we call ourselves Americans, when there's Central America and South America and North America. Canadians are still Americans. People in like Brazil are still Americans. People in the United States tend to have a very narrow view of the world, and like it's almost like every other country kind of revolves around the United States. And so questions that involve beliefs or cultures from the United States are ones that I tend to avoid because they're going to be too black and white in the first place. Another question people often are surprised is not in there is family. Who's going to be okay with the mother-in-law, and how much, you want to live next to your parents? What? To me, that again can fall under beliefs. Some people are very big on getting out on their own, leave the nest, and some people are very like, yeah, I care about my family, I want to be around them, I want to grow old around my extended relations. To me, all of these kinds of questions are ones that you can ask later after the first 5 are answered. Again, the 5 questions are: circumstances in life, do they align? Number 2, do you have at least 2 common interests and at least 1 interest not in common? Number 3, do you have similar ideals and morals and beliefs and can communicate with each other well, especially about them? Number 4, do you want similar things for the future? Do you accept what each other wants for the future? And number 5, attraction. Is there attraction? Mutual attraction. If you can say yes to all 5 of those things, then you probably have a decent shot at being compatible. You have a decent shot at a healthy, long-term relationship with each other. So yeah, pursue it. If it's not a yes to all 5 of those, you might just be friends.